So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Commission, the GRTD, I have the pleasure to welcome to this session on the future of shipping, which starts now. I would like to welcome the panelists, of course, the speakers, the moderator. The moderator will explain to you how this session is organized. A warm welcome also for the people who are virtually with us, following through internet. As you know, the R&I days, like this session today, is part of a process of consultation, of co-design of the future framework program for research and innovation on Horizon Europe. So we are here to listen to your views, to listen to you, because this is a useful input for us, for the Commission, to build up the program. By the way, just a tiny but still important information. The open consultation is still ongoing until the 6th of October on the strategic planning. So without further delay, I would like to give the floor to our moderator from DG Move, Magda Kopczynska. I hope the name is correct. And yeah, she will run the show. Thank you very much.
Andrea, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody in the room. Good afternoon to whoever is watching now. I hope you are many. Okay, here we start. We are supposed to talk about the future of shipping. You see the names of the speakers on the screen, and I will tell you a bit more about each of them when I hand them the floor for 3 minutes. I have a watch here and I'm going to use it. And what we will do today, after the short introductions, and I'll explain to you in a second how they were asked to prepare those introductions, I'll see whether the introductions have anything in common that I can ask them on, but I will also ask all of you to ask whatever questions you'd like to any of them or all of them. We also may have a Slido if it runs, and I think the technology for Slido, Andrea, everybody will know how to use, how it works. I think by now you know. The idea would be that if you have additional questions or you don't want to raise your hand and you add, or for those who are not in the room but outside, you'd like to put a question, you put the question on the Slido. I have a screen here and I will see them coming, and then I can also pass those questions to the group. I was allowed a couple of minutes of general introduction, so I will of course avail myself of this opportunity because, as you know very well, Commission people, if they are given a mic, they never can stop talking, so I'm a good Commission official. But I'm going to do one thing which is very unusual, and you have to apologize me that I'm not welcoming you. There's actually one person in that room that I want to welcome very warmly and thank her for being here, Gesine Meissner, who's sitting at the end of the room. Gesine, you need to stand up so that everybody can see you. Gesine Meissner is currently a member of the board for the Mission on Oceans, which is this new instrument we are developing under the Research and Innovation Programme. But more importantly, Gesine has been member of the European Parliament for 2 terms, and she has been a brilliant rapporteur on important initiatives, including on maritime. So she's been also a big friend of the sector and of the maritime world and of the oceans, and I think it's a great privilege for us that you're in the room, and I'm really happy that you're here. And if you see Gesine anywhere around during the Research and Innovation Days, make sure you come up and talk to her because she knows what she's talking about when she's talking oceans. Gesine, so big thanks for joining. Thank you. So now for there you go. You have the story how to join Slido. I've been really wondering how to start this session because we talk about the future of shipping, but before we can look into the future, we need to make sure that we understand where we are now. And of course, I have all those numbers about the importance of shipping, contribution of the sector to the GDP, that's 75 or 80%, depending which numbers you take, of all goods brought to Europe come by sea, that probably 90% of the things we see in this room came in a container brought by a vessel. But this is also a sector that remains to a great extent invisible. It is a sector that if it stopped, European economy will stop, but we forget about it until something happens. It sometimes comes into the forefront. It comes into the forefront when Greta takes a sailing boat to New York. And we don't forget that there are important discussions happening in New York when we are talking here. It also comes into the picture if something bad happens. Everybody is aware of shipping if there's an accident. Everybody has heard discussions about the environmental impact of the sector. But what I would like the session today to be about is not so much the negativities, although we shouldn't overlook them, but what can we do together, and in particular what can some of the stakeholders represented here can do with the help of the Commission to make sure that shipping contribution to the future is a positive one. And if you were wondering why, then I do recommend that you do read Political Guidelines of President-elect, published 15th of July, which clearly outline 6 policy priorities for the next European Commission coming into the office most probably 1st of November. The first contribution is a European Green Deal. Second one, economy that works for all, Europe fit for digital age, and so on and so forth. Shipping will have a role to play. Maritime industries will have a role to play. Maritime infrastructure will have a role to play. Everything that goes on the water, including inland waterways, will have a role to play. President-elect was crystal clear in her message to the European Parliament in mid-July. For climate, every sector will have to contribute, but also for economy, with the new industrial strategy that the Commission is now tasked to come up with, all sectors will need to find their role, how to contribute to that new industrial strategy. And I think with that, we have a very good basis to start a discussion why the future of shipping starts now and what it is that we can and we have to start thinking about today to make that future really bright. With this introduction, what the honourable members of the panel kindly agreed to do was to come up with, well, one statement, or maybe short statement, in reply to the following question. They all got the same question. How do you see shipping in 2050, if we are talking future? Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less, no specific topics. So now you will hear what they will say about that future of shipping and what shipping will be like in 2050. There's always a problem how you pick up the first speaker, and normally alphabetical order works. I thought I will go with alphabetical order by their first names, but whichever way I do it, Faik, you're coming as the first one. Faik Abbasov is the Shipping Program Manager of Transport and Environment, and I very much hope that I don't need to explain to anybody in the room what Transport and Environment does, because everybody knows the environmental NGO that has been very active and vocal on issues related to the environment and transport, as the name suggests. So, Faik, the floor is yours. 3 minutes. What will shipping look like in 2050?
Thank you very much, Magda. Hello, everybody. As a representative of environmental community, my approach to that question is it's rather not an expectation, but an expression of hope. What will or what should shipping look like by 2050? And I should even say by 2040. We can come to that in a moment. Would like to see shipping industry by 2040 to run on zero carbon energy, having no impact on climate change. Shipping industry that does not pollute the environment, does not affect air quality, and shipping industry that does not create nuisance to sea life during its operations. Short and sweet.
Wow. That was definitely shorter than 3 minutes. So that also means that I'm going to use your remaining minute and a half to comment on it. Maybe just to recall, since as expected, you talk about the environmental impact. We are in a reality where in 2018, in May, International Maritime Organization agreed on a strategy to reduce emissions, greenhouse gas emissions from shipping, with a target at least 50% by 2050, with a vision to a total decarbonisation as quickly as possible. In the political guidelines of Ursula von der Leyen, there is a commitment for Europe to be first carbon neutral continent in 2050. You're talking 2040, and I know that there are many questions, and I think some of the people in the panel will later have those questions to you, how we should get there. But you also talk about the impact on the marine environment. Again, our new Commission will come up with a biodiversity strategy by 2030, which should include the objective of zero pollution of any type from anywhere, again by 2050. So what you've said fits exactly in the priorities of the Commission, and I hope that we will have a possibility to talk how we are getting there. Let's not forget, this is Research and Innovation Day, so I think it's more than the usual policy instruments we are talking here about. It is also the innovation and technologies and new instruments, and that's a brilliant introduction to the next person in alphabetical order by name, and that's Henk Prins, who's Manager of Research and Development in Marine, Netherlands, but he also chairs the Waterborne Technology Platform Research Association. So Henk, what will shipping look like in 2050?
Thank you, Magda. And I would very much like to second the hope that Fake had, that we say, well, we have a vision of the shipping sector, the waterborne shipping sector, to be environmentally friendly, to be green shipping. We see in 2050 that inland shipping, short sea shipping will be completely zero emission. No greenhouse gas emissions, or it will be carbon neutral with synthetic fuels or all kinds of new fuels. Long distance shipping will also become zero emission around 2050. New vessels will enter the market that are zero emission. Retrofits will become available for existing ships to make them zero emission. But not only the carbon emissions are relevant, it's also about chemical emissions from coatings, it's about the noise emissions from propellers. So everything, the whole shipping has to be much greener and will be much greener. But when we look forward to the shipping sector, it's not just about emissions. It's also about safety levels. Magda mentioned accidents. Of course, then we are in the news, and we don't want to be in the news in that way. So shipping should be just as safe as other transport modes. And working at sea for the people at the ship should be just as safe as working on land. We do not accept any additional risks anymore. Automation. Digitization of transport, automation of vessels will increase the safety levels, will increase the efficiency of transport. So it goes hand in hand with new fuels, carbon emissions, automation, digitization. And last but not least, the ports. Ships enter and leave ports, the seagoing vessels, the inland vessels, it's a transfer of cargo. By digitization and further improvement of port operations, we will make a seamless integration of the whole logistic chain, not just ships coming to port, but also how to go the cargo into the hinterland. So that's our vision of 2050.
Hank, thank you very much. I don't know whether you have noticed, but there is a sort of increase in ambition level. I talk IMO strategy 2050, Fake is talking 2040, Hank just said 2030, zero emissions for short distance and inland waterways. I'm really scared what will the next speaker say, but I take my risk and I give the floor to Paolo Giulia, who's a research and development manager from Fincantieri. And I don't need to tell anybody what Fincantieri is, so your job is much easier. What will shipping look like in 2050?
Thank you very much, and taking the floor, in fact, from the shipbuilding point of view. And I want to keep it real, ambitious, and provide you the vision. Something which is peculiar and from Fincantieri is the fact that we have a portfolio of different ships. So in R&D, from cruise to naval ships, mega yachts, offshore vessel, and etc. So in R&D department, we are addressing all the technologies that then can be implemented in all these kind of ships. And we are making regularly an update of our vision on assessing what are the market trends and etc. And to be very short, we have identified 5 visions that are affecting our products. One is not relevant to this panel because it's relevant to offshore platforms, smart offshore platforms. The other 4, they are. I'm starting when introducing also production processes, and so the implementation of smart processes through the digital transformation, through the digital 4.0 transformation inside the ship. This is then enabling a full digital twin for the ship, including also the process, the capability of better integrating operation with design with construction, and the possibility also to recycle all the materials that are that compose the ship. Then coming to the products, we have two visions regarding autonomy. One is the smartness, so the fact that the ships can be sensorized and they increase the number of information you can get, and this information then are collected in a central point in which is helping the master to have automatic autonomous support for decisions, so decision support system, artificial intelligence, exploiting functionalities for the ship owner and for the customer. The autonomous ship doesn't mean only the autonomous in navigation, but it also includes autonomous of operation and up to the unmanned of some products, vehicles. And then one of the most important part, for which I share also with what the other speakers said before, which is the green ship that I left intentionally as the last one. And a ship which is not emitting in operation, a ship which is probably based on alternative energies and on non-fossil fuels, so probably with a fuel shift, and a ship in which we have to combine all the various technology, what exists now and what will exist in the future, in order not only to aim to achieve a certain vision, but also to create a sustainable path over years in order to achieve those ambitions. And if you have the possibility to connect to the Fincantieri website and download the sustainability report, you will find that by 2030 we define a lot of key indicators that we are going to follow and to monitor and to meet in order to be on the right track onto this path.
Thank you very much. It seems 2030 is the year that we need to come back for the Research and Innovation Days and to make a double check whether the future of shipping is going along the suggested pathway. But I'll just do double check with the last person on the panel whether she is as optimistic as everybody else here, or whether her vision for the future of shipping is aligned with the others. And I give the floor to Sinikka Haatonen, who's Head of Environment and Technology at the Finnish Ship Owners Association in Finland.
Thank you, Magda. I have to say that I would like to be realistic, but my personality makes me to be a positive person. So I will follow these previous speakers. But we always have to remember that shipping is still a business. We need a business case, a valid business case whenever we are talking about the development. But because I know myself, so I had to write down my 2 minutes of statement, otherwise it will be 15 minutes. So I believe that in the 2050 the shipping is sustainable and globally competitive transport mode. And this vision is based on 3 areas of success. First, we believe that in 2050, the EU shipping sector employs highly skilled and competent professionals who are willing and able to improve the industry's processes and customs by utilizing the available technology. These brilliant people form the backbone of the modern shipping sector. They will operate the vessels with the support of the intelligent data systems in a way which provides more value with less environmental impact. This leads to the second thing that we believe. I believe that in 2050 the vessels in the EU fleet are eco-efficient. This fleet consists of zero-emission vessels and which are able to use different kind of energy resources, which are offered via well-functioning and adequate infrastructure. And the present vessel traffic services and other monitoring systems have also evolved. In 2050, their functions seamlessly integrate with the automated processes of the vessel, and the remote operator ashore form a natural part of the ship's personnel. This means that the distance monitoring and 24/7 connectivity ensures that the shipping is even more safe and secure than today. And finally, I believe that the successful innovation activities have created great results within the EU shipping sector by 2050. Business, process and technology innovations have enabled the industry to cut emissions and streamline procedures, as I mentioned, but they have also made it possible finally, should I say, for the sea transportation to become an integral part of the seamless transport system that is capable to fulfill its ultimate goal, which, by the way, I believe is still the same in 2050, to deliver the stuff from place A to B in safe, secure and efficient manner, and at the same time in accordance with all the related agreements.
Okay, thank you. So if I were to sum up the vision of the panel for the future of shipping, I started with 2050, but as you heard, they varied with the years. I'd say safety remains important, and even though we don't talk about it on a daily basis, it doesn't make it less important for shipping or for any sector, of not just of transport, but in general. The social dimension is something we shouldn't underestimate and overlook, because any changes in any sector will require adaptation and assistance to people who need to be able to follow those changes, whether on the side of industry or shipping or ports or any sector. Digitalization will play an important role. It will make things, ships, ports, everybody more connected, more relying on data, but maybe also more fragile and susceptible to security issues. I'm sort of going backwards with those points. Autonomous solutions will help, but still a bit uncertain how quickly they will kick in. And I think somehow everybody talk about this environmental dimension. So the future of shipping has to be green, has to be sustainable, has to be neutral to the environment, both and the water. Opinions differ how quickly it will be possible, but normally again, shorter distance, easier inland waterways, short sea shipping, ferries, so on and so forth. We are not going there yet into discussing which technologies. Maybe we'll come to that later. I'm also saying it out loud so that I don't forget, because this session is not only about R&I, but it's also inputs into the policy thinking for the next transport strategy that will be coming in a year from now. But so far they had an easy task, because the question that they got at the beginning, they had it before. The next one they didn't. So bear with me. So with all your fantastic visions, and I sort of think I do question your opposition between realistic and optimistic. I like the optimistic realism, but fine. For all your great visions, name one factor that will make it impossible. And we'll start with you, because we changed the order now. So Sinikka, if there's one thing that will make that vision of 2050 either impossible or difficult to attain, what would you name?
I would name people. And if I may give a short description of what I mean by people, I mean that we need strong cooperation. Now we are facing such a huge tasks, and we have committed to such big goals that not a single person, not a single sector can achieve it alone. We need good cooperation within the maritime cluster and beyond. So that's why I say competent people who are willing to work together to solve the challenges that we are facing at the moment.
But do I also get it right that you're saying there needs to be more cooperation and more discussions between all interested sides to arrive at the solution? Because it's not only people as the employees or employers, it's also the sort of community of maritime cluster.
We need to look beyond the maritime cluster, because we need probably solutions that the people within the maritime cluster can't even come up with. So we need to look beyond the maritime cluster.
And now the remaining three speakers are thinking, who's coming next? Paolo.
Thank you. So I have to name just one.
One thing that will make your vision, what you presented also for Fincantieri, but maybe not only, maybe more widely, that will make that vision not happen.
Okay, so if I have to just to pick one, and if I believe in any case that we can work actively on R&D, resolve technical challenges, and etc., it is about greening. We can work on incremental solution to improve the performance, but at a certain point, if we want to have a zero-emission ship, completely zero-emission ship, most probably this is also related to a fuel shift. And so what is outside the maritime sector, the energy part, I mean, some somebody say hydrogen, somebody else says some hydrogen-based fuels. Whatever it is, the availability of the fuel and transformation of the entire economy and society to a green society is a prerequisite in order to implement this transformation.
Thank you. I have this theory that actually transport and environment is behind this panel because everybody ultimately talks about greening. So, Feik, what will need to happen for your 2040 vision not to take place? Not that you want it, but what's your worry?
I mean, I fully agree with what Paolo just said. But in science, there are things called dependent variables. There are things called independent variables. I would say that that's a dependent variable because that may happen or may not happen depending on the thing that I'm going to say, which is, I believe, is a regulation. Lack of regulation that is stringent enough that brings about the development that Paolo talked about, brings about the infrastructure rollout, the fuel production and shipbuilding. Without that regulation, and again, this is not just any kind of regulation, it's stringent enough regulation that changes behavior, that's transformative, will not be able to achieve 2040 or 2050 vision.
Okay. Hello? There it works. Okay, hang. I'm keeping myself from responding, but I will. I'll come back to the regulation fact. That's the only reason why I'm leaving it without comments.
I would like to add on that on the regulation side, because not just regulations, could also be incentives or other things than just regulations. But for me, that would be what really could hinder my 2050 vision is the lack of international cooperation. For inland shipping, you can do a lot of things within a country or within the 2-3 countries, like the Rhine countries, only 5 countries that can work together and get something done. For short sea shipping, it's the same. It's the EU waters. It's the EU that can get, well, hopefully, maybe not, but it's a wish that I would have that the EU could do something. But for long distance shipping, you have to go to the United Nations. And now looking at some countries, what they say about climate change or protectionism, so those kind of things, cooperation seems to be getting less instead of better. So the lack of international cooperation and really the willingness to go the extra mile and to make it possible for long distance shipping to be zero emission, to have the fuel availability, the one fuel you need in all ports across the world, those kind of things. So international cooperation is very, very relevant.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, to sum up the answer to that question, it's about addressing the problems together. Mm-hmm. It's about real focus on the technological breakthrough. It's about coming up with regulation that will support that breakthrough or push that breakthrough. I think here we could discuss for like 2 hours, and then also work internationally. So because of the global character of shipping. If we are talking about regulation, should the I have to come back on that. You said stringent regulation. What's the level of stringency?
Thank you very much for coming back to that. To make a segue from that point, one country is not enough to make the change, but too many countries in the room is too big to make the decision. So we need to find the right spot, the right balance where that decision needs to be made to change the behavior. I already feel the friction in the room, but in terms of how stringent that should be, let's just assume that, for the sake of example, hydrogen is in whatever form or shape, is the future fuel. Hydrogen today, produced renewably, is 5-6 times more expensive than the fuel it's supposed to replace. That is the heavy fuel oil. That means that the level of stringency should be strong enough so that ship owners, shipbuilders, and fuel suppliers and infrastructure providers have no choice but to use it in one form or another. That means that if we're talking about carbon pricing, just general example, we're talking about more than 500 euros per ton of CO2 today. In the future, that can change, and that will change. Hydrogen fuel can be as cheap as that water. But that's the end point, not the starting point. So the starting point regulation needs to be stringent enough so that we can get to the waste station.
See, it's important when you're a moderator to throw in a question that you actually absolutely not need it, and the panel can talk for the next hour without you, and ideally not kill one another. Sinikka?
Yeah, just a short comment that, first of all, we believe that the global industry should be regulated globally in order to ensure the competitiveness between the different areas, different countries. And that's why we hope that the EU should put focus on the work so that they can to push IMO forward, not to create aerial regulations, but to really push IMO work forward, because that's possible to do. And secondly, the problem from the ship owner's point of view is that it's easy to say that the regulations make ship owners to do something, but ship owners are in a competitive environment. So they are facing a lot of problems at the moment, because they don't know when they are choosing the technology and when they are choosing the fuel option, they really don't know what kind of competition they will face in 5, 10 or 15 years, because the ships that they are investing today will meet the competition of the future vessels. And because the technology solutions and the fuel solutions are still open, it's challenging. And I'm not sure that the stringent regulation will be an answer. I would rather look for the incentives.
Stringency being one dimension of the regulation, now I'm looking at the two sides of the providers of A vessels, B equipment. Regulation prescriptive or regulation descriptive? What's the way to regulate so that it's, as it is now nicely called, future-proof in view of the fast-changing technological world? You make a choice which one wants to answer first.
Thank you. No, it's strange. We started talking about R&D, we come up to regulation, and
because I come from DG Move. That was the risk that my colleagues from DG RTD took when they allowed me to moderate, and they knew the risk. But we'll come back to R&I, I promise, after this round.
Okay, but I am from R&D department, so it's. I understand the point, but I do not see the possibility to say, okay, we want to modify the market, and so I take a level and I put it like this. It can be done if this is feasible in terms of technology, and there are also business behind this, which needs to be continuously run. So for me, it is the other way around. We have to work on R&D, we have to work on technology, we have to work on infrastructure. There is also people outside maritime believing in the transformation to cleaner fuels and the entire society. And then, of course, I'm coming on the item of on regulation when I say, okay, there is the technical possibility to have a cost-competitive condition, a certain technology which is better. Okay, I fully agree that the also rules are following this. But I want to also to add another point which is related to rules and regulation and to R&D and technologies and the possibility to implement innovative technology on board ships. And in certain cases for hydrogen, for the autonomous ship and etc., we do not have yet a regulatory framework telling the shipbuilder, I mean, my company telling the shipbuilder, telling the who has to build the ship, in which way the ship has to be built, according to which standards and etc. And this is not left, unexplored. It is something that at IMO and in various technical committees, etc., we are addressing. But there is another loop that this kind of rules require technological knowledge in order to get to the appropriate level and prescription.
Thank you. Hank?
Well, what I feel is very important for regulations or incentives or both, a combination of both, is that you know in advance what's going to happen as a ship owner, as a shipbuilder. Let's say 10, 20, 30 years from now, that you know which steps will be taken at what time. Because a ship lasts for 30 years, so if you have to make a decision now, you have to know what will happen in 10 or 20 years' time. And that, for instance, if every 10 years you would have a different CO2 tax, or every 5 years, or the changes can be made, then the technology providers can adapt to that. They can develop new technologies that is available then in 2035 or 2040 that's sufficient for that aim. But if it's left in the dark, saying, okay, in 2030 we want this, and in 2050 maybe something else, and then somehow something political happens in 2040 and the new regulations pop up, that's completely disturbing for a global industry like shipping that has these ships running for such a long time. So consistency in policies, setting targets for different years, I think that's very important for the sector to have. Then we can work towards that.
So basically what you're asking for is legal certainty and predictability.
Yes.
Okay. Easy. I promised I would pass to you questions as they come on Slido, and there was one, but now it disappeared. But maybe it will come back. But there you go. There is a question which moves from regulation, sort of-ish, to research and innovation. And the question is the following. Will Horizon Europe have to focus on the acceleration of existing promising sustainable technologies towards a zero-emission shipping, or should it focus on disrupting technologies, because with the existing technologies we will never reach the zero-emission target by 2050? So basically the question is the following. What should Horizon Europe focus on to bring the future of shipping that you all described? And now we'll start with Henk.
Thank you. I think it's not a black and white picture that is that we have. Yes, we will need disruptive technologies, if you would call a fuel cell for shipping disruptive technology, because the fuel cell exists already, and hydrogen as a fuel. That's disruptive for shipping, and we will need it in the future solutions. But it doesn't mean that we should not do research also on the efficiency of shipping, on the digitization of shipping, and making ships more efficient in the operation, or different concepts of ships, etc. That those things should also continue, because if the ships will be just as energy efficient in 2050 as they are now, they need a lot of hydrogen on board to sail from China to Europe. If we can reduce that by 20-30% in the same period as we are developing this disruptive technology, then it becomes much quicker feasible to apply this new technology. So it goes hand in hand. Yes, we need this disruptive technologies for the big vision, but to make it possible to have a business case in that period, we need also the normal technologies to improve as well.
Sinke?
Well, I believe that we need continuous R&D in the future, and I think that the Horizon Europe should do both. They should it should be able to develop the existing technology that we have in hand, but also to find a way to support the new innovations and the disruption.
Well, I believe the public money should be concentrated on the research that would not otherwise happen without public investment. And in that case, my belief is that Horizon Europe should concentrate on disruptive technologies, because energy efficiency is already happening. To an extent, not enough, but it's already happening. Shipbuilders and ship owners, they're interested in offering as well as purchasing efficient ships. This is going in that direction. But not everybody has money. Probably nobody has money to invest in something that will deliver that final solution, because that's too costly. So if there is public money available, we can discuss the source of it. It should go to disruptive technologies.
So I think now we have a perfect order, because Paolo will tell us where Fincantieri will not invest on its own and where you need Horizon Europe to come to get us towards the future, no?
No,
You said you're the R&I department, so
Yeah,
that's
yes,
a perfect question for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I feel much more comfortable now. And no, but coming to the question, it's the role of public funding for R&D is the one either to introduce new technologies or to make it faster to happen in the market. And I suspect for certain technology, there's disruptive technology, as also in the other question it's indicated, it will take time to be fully commercially implemented. So for me, it is worth also to work on incremental technology. And if I may say, the European Commission, through the framework program for research and innovation, is very accurate in identifying what is state-of-the-art, and so it's just implementation in the market, which is totally different story from what is R&D and how to push beyond the actual level of technology, those technologies that are already implemented or are going to be implemented very soon. So for me, it is the balanced approach, just because breakthrough technology will not happen tomorrow. So we have to accompany this transformational path on maritime with incremental innovation.
Okay, not easy to sum up, but maybe just to recall that, of course, we are looking into Horizon Europe and research and innovation funding, but in terms of accompanying deployment of new technologies, we do have other instruments at European level, but also at national level with Connecting Europe's facility, InvestEU, the Future Innovation Fund created for climate objectives, and also a few new initiatives, again, announced by President-elect in the political guidelines. You know, I thought you will not see those questions, so I thought I will have a choice whether I read it or not, but now it's too late, we are transparent, the second question is there, so I will be asking that to the panel as well. There you go. 13 years for IMO to have rules, and now the questions are coming, to have rules for LNG. How can we speed up this process for new fuels like hydrogen? But you need to be very short, because after that I take a break and I turn to the room in case they also have questions to you. Paolo, you start. It's always the last person that starts.
Okay. And can we speed up this process on new fuel? Okay, IMO has its own pace. What I think we can do is to work on technology in order to understand what are the limits, what are the possibilities, how the technology can improve at a faster pace in order to make it feasible in the market.
Okay, Henk?
Well, it's also something that as a waterborne platform we've been discussing, that in the past you develop technologies and then regulations need to adapt. So technology is there, but regulation is not yet there. You cannot apply it, and that's hindering the uptake of a new technology. So it's very important that regulations are developed while technology is also being developed. And something the EU, for instance, could do is for, again, the inland shipping, the short sea shipping, make exemptions that certain technologies can already be applied. Because my feeling is that at IMO, a lot of people say, okay, we don't know what technology is available, we don't know what's possible, so let's wait for another 2 years. And then it's postponed and postponed and postponed again. So if you can demonstrate technology, then it's probably much easier to get it into regulations that at least it's allowed to use.
Sinika?
That is so true. I have been part of the IMO work for several years now, and I know that it requires good cooperation between the technology providers and the governmental people, because if it's those member states who are presenting the submissions for the IMO, and if they are well prepped by the technology people in good cooperation, they will get more quality inside the papers. And that way they can be pushed ahead in the IMO.
Okay, Fake, we know that you believe that there are too many people in the room when IMO discusses, but I know that TNE also agrees that if the international regulation is the right one, then this is an effective means to do so. So is there something that you as an NGO, the NGOs are represented at IMO, that you believe you could do more or differently to speed up the work of IMO?
There are two separate things. You can have a regulation that incentivizes or forces to change behavior, but then you have regulations like that one, which determines the rules how to build an LNG ship or how to build a hydrogen ship. I think that is the question that's being asked. That question is, yes, of course. That question is in relation to Maritime Safety Committee, which determines those rules. Those rules, ideally, if they are international, that's fine, because that's the way the system has been set up. But if you're going to wait until those rules change or get updated, that will be at least 2030 before we have those prescriptive shipbuilding rules in place. I'm just paraphrasing it for general understanding. So what member states could do, there are rules, there are ways of, in the absence of the global rules, they can find alternative design mechanism under the existing rules and start implementing the new technologies under. I know that it's not easy, it's very difficult actually to have exemption every single time you are building a ship, it's not easy. But we cannot wait for IMO to actually develop those prescriptive rules. So flag states should already start using this system available under international law and certify, for example, hydrogen ships.
Okay, no, yes?
Just a short comment. I think that we should not blame IMO. We should start to support IMO, because we have IMO and it's a very powerful tool, should I say. So we should support that and really give sort of more power to that instead of just blaming them.
I would tend to exceptionally agree with you. Exception because I try not to agree with anybody on the panel because I need to treat them differently. But on this one, I will second you. But I know that it's not about not supporting IMO. Anyway, anybody from the room that would like to ask a question before we go to numerous questions that are coming? And I have two questions here, and then I have one there. So you'll start with gentleman here, and then we'll go to the lady. And if you could kindly, as always, introduce yourself.
So Nicolas Bray from Hydrogen Europe, but I'm not going to make a lobby for hydrogen here, but rather ask if we have to make choice between technologies and short-term improvements and long-term, can we at least try to agree on eliminating technologies that are dead-end? So a technology that will make no sense in 2050 and is not yet ready now, can we agree to expel it? Because in many other sectors we have invested in technology which are just intermediary steps, which in fact were excused not to develop the long-term strategy. So could we try to agree at least on this principle that intermediary dead-end solutions should not receive funding?
You're addressing your question to anybody in particular, or you leave it for the panel to pick it up, whoever wishes to address it?
Whoever wants to pick it.
Any volunteers? I will leave the question in the air. Hank.
Yeah. Well, of course, it depends on what is the dead-end technology. But because for now, for ships, I don't know. I can't envisage a technology that is for sure a dead end. We don't know yet what fuel it will be in 2050. So are we sure it's going to be a hydrogen fuel cell, or will it be a combustion engine running on synthetic fuels that might be possible as well? So is the combustion engine a dead-end technology or not? I don't know. So as long as we cannot say what the end solution will be, we have a vision, but we don't know what the solution will be, it's difficult to say this is a dead-end technology. And secondly, we have in 2050, if we have this new solution, we have a whole fleet of ships that are 20, 30 years old that are still sailing around and will be used. We can sell them off to Africa or South America, but they're still sailing around in the world. So we have to be able to retrofit them as well. So investing knowledge and developments in existing technologies to retrofit them, to make them at least cleaner or hopefully zero emission as well. That's also very important. We cannot just focus on the new technology for the new ships, because then we will never meet our target.
Fake?
Well, I think it's a very important question, but it's not too difficult, actually. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what 2050, 2040 may look like. But we have a set of principles, or we can create a set of principles to measure the existing solutions or proposed solutions against those principles. Number one, it should be carbon neutral, or ideally carbon free. Does that technology fit that description? Yes or no? If it fits, it goes to the next stage. If it doesn't, you discard it. Secondly, obviously, you will have a list of several measures, or several technologies rather, and then you will look at which one is the cheapest one. So the cheapest among the equals, because we have a ship owner sitting next to me. Obviously, they want to have a business model. I think that's the expression that you use. The cheapest solution among the possible options will actually carry the day. I mean, many people are old enough here to remember the VHS and Betamax, right? Both were equally fine in terms of, but which one was the cheapest one, and that carried the day. So in terms of discarding the solutions, yes, we should already discard the technologies that cannot be theoretically carbon-free or carbon neutral. We can discard the technologies that will be very expensive, theoretically possible, but very expensive. That means that ship owners will not be interested in using those. And thirdly, shipping's decarbonization is part of the economy-wide decarbonization. So shipping's new energy, zero carbon energy, will be competing with other sectors for that energy. Obviously, sun is always there, wind is always blowing, but we'll have a shortage of renewable energy in this transition period. As a third principle, I would suggest, use the least energy-intensive option to deliver the final solution.
Okay, I'll turn back to the room. There was a question from you, and then the lady there.
I go back to future emerging technologies.
Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Nick Analopoulos from Democritus, Greece. I go back to the emerging technologies, and you have to see that shipping is not the whole picture. It's carbon. It's the problem is decarbonization. Is stop using lignite and carbon, and so the emerging technology. If we say like the two emerging competing technologies, you mentioned hydrogen, and the other is to develop cost-effective CO2 capture systems, which are the two technologies that come. I think CO2 capture technology will, by 2050, will be developed to go down to $20 per ton, and it will be applicable. And the only one that can be enforced, because even if you develop technology, the thing is how you convince people who other countries to use not stop using lignite and carbon, and so between the two technologies, hydrogen, because I'm working on membranes.
Sorry, could you ask your question, because we are really running out of time, and I want not only you to ask the question, but two other people ask their questions, and then leave the panel a chance to answer, and then give them the closing remarks. And we need to do it in 8 minutes.
Two technologies emerged. I think perhaps carbon capture systems could be considered, even for shipping. That's the.
What I will do, I will give the floor to two more people who ask for questions, and then I will turn to the panel, and then you will get my final question for the day, and then we are off. And then our mics are switched off as well. Madam.
I am Amaya Gartua from Research Center Techniker in Spain, and from EUMAT platform, Materials platform. And I've been in the previous session related with alternative fuels, and they highlight that for ship the best solution is ammonia. Then are you consider this alternative? And also I've been in EMRS, in circular economy, and they highlight that the transformation of CO2 to methane was highly efficient and demonstrated in Japan, and also this alternative could be interesting. Thank you.
Okay, and we had a question up front here. That will be the final one from the room. I didn't expect you to be so active. That's why I was relying so much on the Slido.
Mamunka Gwilawa, national focal point on ICZM for Georgia. So would be the divestment be the solution for you? Because under the climate change, many things are not tolerable. And also the shipping industry has a major negative impact on coastal issues. So I would really, if I would be the investor in some companies, I would really divest immediately because they do so much damage.
Oh, now I have to react. I would just like to recall that shipping still remains to be quite an energy efficient means of transporting cargo, but I leave it at that. I'm not intervening, I'm the moderator. We had a question on carbon capture and storage, we had a question on ammonia methane, and then we had a question whether those who have money in shipping should leave and invest into whatever else.
Carbon capture and storage on board of a ship. Theoretically possible, but practically. Yes. Capture, storage, and then reusage. I think that's what you're referring to. Theoretically possible, but it will be, from my point of view, a nightmare for ship owners. You have 60% of the global shipping on tramp market. They don't know where they're going. They basically will go wherever the cargo owner tells them. And imagine that you need to discharge every time you come to the port that CO2. That will be a nightmare to mobilize at the global level. So best to rely on the fuel itself that is carbon free. You don't have to worry about the CO2. The other question, divestment, I guess you are talking about modal shift specifically. Yeah. Yes, of course. Shipping, yes, it is efficient mode of transport, but in most of the cases, it doesn't really compete with other sectors, other modes of transport. You can't really transport a container from China to Europe on a plane. You carry something else. So, but on the coastal shipping, it is possible. And in the cases where zero emission technology is available for road transportation, for example, zero emission trucks or rail, which is already zero emission, then modal shifts should be considered.
Can I just remind that we have other externalities than emissions that should be taken into consideration, but I'm mode neutral here. Sinikka?
Well, I think that there is always a competition, and shipping is a competitive market at the moment, especially when we are talking about the short sea shipping. So I think that we should aim for example, for the biofuels made from the waste or animal oils, and we should utilize the wind and things like that, the new developments. But that's for the short sea shipping especially. Yeah.
Okay, can I just leave the questions on the technologies, ammonia, methane, carbon capture and storage to Fincantieri and waterborne platform?
Yeah.
Possible, not possible? Go on.
Sure. And, well, we have no preclusions regarding the kind of fuel. The fact is that the market has not decided what kind of fuel the economy or the shipping will be based on in the future. And the role of Fincantieri is to be prepared in terms of technology to meet a further demand. So we are going to be leader in this transformation. But it's dependent also on the availability on the fuel and which fuel will be available. And one last remark I would like to do. We are now concentrating on greening, and we are diverting different topics and etc. And I mentioned that in the vision of Fincantieri there is also digitization, automation, and etc., etc. My pledge, they are not completely separated. I mean, decision support system for energy efficiency, which means reducing the energy demand and making more attractive to alternative power, is something we have also to work this. And my message is there are no boundaries among cluster or silos of technology, especially on board, in which you have to put all this technology together and to find the best way to optimize and to integrate in order to reach your vision. And once more, another level, not only at ship level, also at fleet level, in the connection with the shore.
But thank you so much for reminding us that A, it's not only about greening, and B, that many things contribute to the greening objective as well.
And I want to say greening is important.
Yes, you know, that I think we all understood clearly, at least from the panel.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I would like to second, of course, what Paolo is saying, that we are not excluding any fuel at the moment. In a ship, hydrogen, it might be difficult to handle, but it's clean. Other fuels are easier to handle, but they're not carbon neutral in itself, so you have to have somehow kind of supply chain that is carbon neutral. So you shift the problem to somewhere else. So we're not excluding anything at the moment. We want to research all these possibilities. And to follow up on the point of Paolo, that it's not just about greening, there's more pollution coming from ships. This winter in the Netherlands, a container ship lost 300 containers. And it's a very sensitive area, a lot of pollution there, not from CO2, but from just losing a few containers. For the ship, it was a few. For the country, it was a lot. So big pollution there as well. So like I mentioned in my first remarks, safety of transport. Zero accidents is also very important to have.
Thank you very much, because I think it's a very, very good summary of various topics, from the business models for long distance short sea, from the question of how do we green, how do we make a choice with technologies, what is possible that we go just beyond greening, and that pollution is not only the air but everything else. Now, my colleagues from DG RTD are taking notes of the statements, and each panel will be then summarized in 1 line, 2 lines, that will make it into the final concluding remarks of the entire RNI days. So now there is your chance. There's this rule, unfortunately, that what is being said at the end stays in the head better than what you've said at the beginning. So you can repeat your message from the beginning, or maybe say a new one. The question is the following. These are RNI days, the first ones in Brussels. We are just about to launch Horizon Europe. If you were to pass one message, literally one, what should be the thing that European Commission needs to focus on in Horizon Europe to deliver on your preferred vision of shipping in the future? What will it be? And where do I start now? So who's the last one? No, Sinikka, it's going to be you.
Oh, just one thing. I would like us to have a solution, support to create solutions that help us to optimize by using the digitalization, and this way to integrate these eco-efficient vessels to the whole transportation system.
Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you very much. And I think we have to remember something, that shipbuilding, shipping and maritime is a specialty for Europe. We are in the front edge of innovation. And we have, as I would say, the same more or less vision regarding the future. So we have to leverage on this and understanding that if we want to reach that vision, it's a matter of having different technologies integrated on board at the same place and working smoothly in order to reach that vision. So integration among different technologies is the key word, leveraging on European industrial capacity, European knowledge and European skills in a model of open innovation.
Okay, I think I will let Henk be the last, in a way, because you're the waterborne platform as well. So, hey, Henk, it's for you.
Thank you, Magda. For DG RTD and Horizon Europe specifically, our message would be, my organization's message would be to invest in hydrogen technology that could decarbonize big enough ship that is representative of the shipping fleet in the market today. Obviously, that will require a lot of funding, and we believe that President-elect's promise to include shipping in the maritime ETS and requiring them to pay for the CO2 they emitted could be and should be used in funding this research and development, as well as also possibly subsidizing the operation of the first zero-emission vessels that will be delivered, hopefully, in the near future.
Henk?
I think that Horizon Europe should focus on developing green technology, not necessarily just hydrogen, but green technologies, which go hand in hand with smart technology. So how we operate the ship, how we sensor all the sensors on the ship to measure what's happening on the ship, etc. So smart and green go hand in hand, and given the size of our sector and the transport we do across all of the world, a big investment in the European sector to be world leading.
Thank you very much. And I'm in the privileged position that I don't have to sum it up, and I'll just turn to Peter and Andrea to do the work for me. But I would like to take this occasion to thank you very much for agreeing to be on this panel where you didn't know what's going to come your way, but you've survived. You did very well. Big thanks. So join me for thanking them for this. And thank you for being in the room, and thank you for the questions, and apologies to those who sent their questions we didn't answer, but we will keep note of your questions, and we'll see what is the best way to send to make you know what some of us are thinking about them. Thank you very much, and have a very good afternoon and very good Research and Innovation Days 2019.